Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will learn from personal stories and explore thought-provoking topics, all with one goal in mind: living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the On Purpose podcast, where we exist to brighten the days of people around the world by sharing inspiring and thought-provoking stories. And if that resonates with you, if you want to help us share those stories, please join us on patreon.com/the On Purpose podcast. Like, subscribe, or share wherever you're listening. And this week, I want to put a smile on your face because we are joined by our first ever guest who has aspirations of being President of the United States of America. Gene Sticco is going to join us. He is a Air Force veteran and opera house owner, and he is launching a bid as an independent candidate for the highest office in our land. So sit back and enjoy and then make some decisions. Can a third-party candidate really win that office here in the United States, or is he wasting his time? Give this interview a listen, and please comment, like, subscribe, share. Let us know how we're doing. Enjoy your interview with Gene Sticco. Gene, welcome to the On Purpose podcast, my friend. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
What is Gene up to nowadays? Besides, of course, running for this thing we call president, what are you up to, my friend?
Well, it's funny. My wife asked me to do some things around the house, and I say, look, I'm running for president of the United States, and I'm the general director of an opera company. I don't have a lot of time for foolishness.
I knew that's where you're going to take that comment right away. So I think we're going to get along just fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have, I'm technically, I think I enjoy the fantasy that I'm retired. I retired going on 5 years at about 45 years old. I just turned 50 this past November. In that time, as I said, started a new opera company in the greater Boston, Massachusetts area, and had decided in my retirement years I was going to live life more creatively and pursue my passions a little bit. Instead of investing in restoring old Mustangs, my retirement thing was I wanted to produce opera. And I wish I could say, running with young women wasn't part of it, but my wife's 14 years younger. So I at least still did that. And so I've had this idea, desire. I think a lot of people, say, oh, I'm going to run for president someday. Or they have people, who tell them, you know what, you should run for president. And, I've always had that through my life.
Okay.
When you sit around and, but you never know, is it kind of the beers or or the drinks inspiring them.
Right.
And, just recently I said, you know what, I think the time is right. If I'm ever going to do it, let me do it now. I think I'm the man for the moment.
I love it. All right. Well, we're going to help our community decide if you are in fact the man for the moment, Gene, because before we get into the big stuff, I got to warm you up, right? Like, you're running an opera house. You're not going to put your talent out there on stage and expect them to hit the high notes without some vocal warm-ups in the back.
That's it.
Well, I can't do that for you, Gene. I'd be setting you up for failure right now. So I got to warm you up. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. You are stranded on a deserted island for the rest of your life, Gene. You get one food. Choose wisely, my friend. What will you be eating?
Charcuterie.
See, I can't even spell that, charcuterie. I'm just going to put a snack tray. Can I just put that in my notes?
But cheese and crackers.
All right, what do you want on your board?
Oh, I'd have a selection of, if I could only have, one thing.
No, it's a board. You pick the board, dude. You get a smattering.
All right. No, if I can have the whole board, then I would have, I'd have the proper meats. I'd have my salamis, my prosciutto, my um, what is it? That Spanish ham. It
Mm,
escapes me now.
all
But a
right.
little, that's Portuguese sausage, little kielbasa, right? Have some dried fruits. I like my dried apricots, dried pears. Have some honey. Have some uh, preserves. So I like or marmalades, I should
Oh,
say,
you like
the
a
sort
good
of
jam,
orange
yeah.
or fig marmalades,
Okay.
and then Walker's table water crackers. Those
Mm.
really nice thin table water crackers, and then an assortment of whatever cheeses I could get my hands on before I went out to the island.
All right. I gotta tell you that I'm liking where you're headed already because that is one of the most unique answers I've gotten in 4 years, and it allowed you the most variety because it's a board,
That's
so
right.
you got to pick.
You can never go wrong with food on a board.
No, I agree. All right, Gene, you get a superpower. What superpower do you want, and why do you want it?
The ability to make people's heads explode.
What do you want that for?
because because sometimes I think it would be the most natural one for me because I know sometimes as I'm watching and listening to people speak, I think somewhere in my subconscious that's what I'm trying to do as I watch them
You're
is just please let your head explode and let this end for me.
You're trying to mind meld it. Okay, okay. Favorite book, Gene?
Favorite book that you know good question. My favorite book often depends upon what I'm involved in the moment. Do I have a go-to? I'm thinking out loud. Do I have a go-to that I go back to a lot? I go back to the classic Sun Tzu Art of War.
Oh, okay. That's a good
uh,
one.
there's another book, and I don't know the author, but it's called The 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
I like that one. And then as far as just sort of something good for the soul and spirit, The Five People You Meet in Heaven.
Mm, nice. If you get to have dinner with one person, that person could be alive or have passed, who would you have dinner with and what would you want to ask them?
I would have dinner with General George Patton.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite historical figures, and what I would want to ask him about, and how I would phrase the specific question. There's a great quote from the movie about Patton that summarizes some of his leadership strategy, where he gets through giving this impassioned speech to the colonels and telling them how they're going to march the men and they're going to keep marching them and they're going to go on and he doesn't give a damn and slamming his fist on the table, and his aide grabs him afterwards because all the colonels are kind of eyeballing one another, and the aide says, "General, sometimes the other officers don't know when you're serious or you're just being dramatic."
Right.
And his response was, "Doesn't matter if they know, as long as I know." So I think, my question in that is, how did he use those sort of dramatic skills? And if you know a little bit of in
Yep.
his background, even in West Point, or he was a theatrical sort, a man who loved the theater. Um, but how did he manage and balance that idea of bringing theatrics into leadership for dramatic purpose to emphasize a moment, and was it inherent to his nature, or was it just or was it very specifically planned, I guess?
Yeah. No, that's good. That'd be a great question, a good conversation. Ironically, I'm traveling right now, and I'm outside a place that I didn't know had ties to General George Patton. The Yuma Proving Ground down here in southwest Arizona is apparently where he trained his
Yeah,
troops for the invasion of North Africa.
yeah, very good.
So yeah, stumbled across that the other day. That's why I always tell our community: the more you travel, the less you know, right? Because you're
Very
always
true.
learning new stuff. All right, how you
Yeah,
feeling,
yeah.
Gene? You warmed up?
I'm good.
Yeah. All right, talk to me. So, in getting ready for the episode, I noticed an interesting dynamic here. We got some Army time and the
Air
opera.
Force.
Air Force. Okay, okay. Air
Yeah.
Force. Air Force and opera. How How did that coincide in your life and come together for you?
So, oh, excuse me. So, yeah, so I did, 9 years in the Air Force, and then went into government, private industry, and government contracting. For the majority of my civilian career. And like I said, I left the Air Force. What was it? 99. Retired in 2018. Formally 2017. Started semi-retired life. And I was always an opera fan. Probably it started, at about 14. No, I'm sorry, 15 years old. In high school, my high school English teacher, or Italian teacher, I'm sorry, um, played opera in Italian class as part of helping us develop and understand the language. And I always enjoyed it. Always enjoyed Broadway theater and all the rest of it. Fast forward, um, I met my current wife in 2017, and I met her over in Latvia. I was doing some contracting work there, and I was led to an IT company. And by education, she's an IT engineer, specializes in robotics and artificial intelligence. And she was she was pretty much the only person in her office that spoke fluent English. She was quite lovely. She was single, and I invited her to karaoke because I have a good karaoke game.
Okay.
And lo and behold, it turned out what I didn't know about her is she was on her 7th year with the chorus of the Latvian National Opera. She was a
Ooh.
professional opera singer.
Okay.
Um, as we got involved and got married, and the relationship progressed, and I was moving into retirement, I started seeing the problems of the industry and meeting all this great talent and seeing not so great talent on stage. And things didn't connect, and listening to them. And I was just like, well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't. And so I think a lot of those military attributes of leadership and service, and probably just the guy thing of being a problem solver, as well, and then having a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, as well as turning to some of the contracting. I spent some years in intelligence as well, um, getting into data and understanding the industry and all the rest. And I said, well, look, you all sort of have this attitude, oh, the art is dying, and oh, it's so hard to make a living. And I said, what I'm looking at doesn't support that. There's a way to do it, but the general mindset isn't allowing it. I said, so we need to think differently. And so ultimately, the culmination, I think, of all that experience led to what I call my full spectrum dominance strategy for the opera industry in the United States.
And how's that working out so far?
So far, so good. I'm pissing a lot of people off.
Doesn't seem like you're overly concerned with that.
No, not at all. I think it's look, every industry sort of eventually values its disruptors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying to do. And COVID was the lockdowns and the fallout from that, particularly in the arts, the performing arts. They were disproportionately hit because the majority of them are independent contractors, are self business people. But artists are terrible business people, and they don't manage themselves like small businesses. They manage themselves like starving artists, and COVID taught them that you could literally become a starving artist, overnight.
Yeah.
And so I said, whatever we do needs to have a focus on how do we future proof the industry. And in order to future proof the industry, it means we need to rethink how the industry works. And we need to rethink performing arts and performing arts venues, and again, the full spectrum of what that means, and incorporate some risk mitigation strategies in how we do that. And so that's been the culmination of almost, the last 4 years. And like I said, in October, I registered the company and sort of officially launched in January, and we're getting ready to move into our permanent home here in the next couple of weeks. And we are the only opera company in New England now that actually has its own performance venue and performance space. And that in and of itself is a bit of an industry coup so far.
Well, congratulations on that. That's certainly awesome. And I do believe disruptors are what facilitate change in all aspects of society.
It's the big concept in this, and some people, and we're doing some things about audience experience and incorporating technologies and doing some technology investment and all the rest. And some people have asked, well, why are you doing this as a nonprofit, especially if you're sort of looking to innovate the integration of some of this technology, that stuff you could sell, da 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 da. Because number one, I'm retired.
Right.
I'm all set. I'm okay. You know, if I'm serious about making an industry that is future proof, then whatever we're able to do and able to generate as a company needs to stay in the company, to sustain the company, sustain the artists, sustain the vision, sustain good leadership that would be able to come in and take over long after I'm gone. So that's sort of my view to that.
I love it. I love it. So then Gene, why not sit back? You got this going, you got a good retirement. Why jump into the mess that is the American political landscape?
Because somebody has to. We need an adult in the room. And I believe in America.
Right.
I think that was the opening line to The Godfather. Right.
Yeah.
I believe in America. And if I believe in all of those things that represents, and sort of my campaign slogan, is for the promise of America. And what does that mean? And what does that mean? I believe. And it means I believe in the Constitution, and it means I believe in progressing society. I believe in equal rights for everybody, and I don't think I'm unique in that sense, and I'm not trying to say nobody else does or nobody that's part of the existing political structure does, but I think their motivations are about keeping a job.
Mm-hmm.
And on the more, whether it's narcissistic or evil side of it, keeping power. My interest is in refocusing government to be of service to the people. And in so many ways, in my own experiences, even currently, immigrating my wife and immigrating my stepson and all the rest of it, I sit back and I look and I say, none of this is meant to help us. Sure. None of the processes that we go through, there's nobody there that is there to be of service to us as taxpayers, right, as citizens. And I'm like, it's a fundamental mindset that needs to change, and it needs to change from the top. And we look at politics, like you said, we know what's wrong with it, right? We know we get political theater.
For sure.
We know we don't like political theater. We criticize it. We mock it. We yell about it. We scream about it to one another. Stop playing games. But then we demand it. When somebody comes along and doesn't sound presidential, or they should have done this, or they should do, hold on, that's the theater. So do you not want the theater of politics, or do you want the theater of politics, or do you just want to bitch about it?
For sure.
And that's why I say, so the unfortunate thing is, realistic and reasonable people don't make headlines.
No, never have.
right?
And
That's the
definitely not in
fundamental truth.
today's world.
And right, definitely not. Nobody's gonna, I can do a million of these shows and have 100 million people listening, and nobody's gonna grab a headline that says Gene Sticco says something very reasonable and realistic about issue XYZ.
Right. Well, our
Right.
community is. Our community is based around purposeful living, and part of that is being reasonable. Let me ask you this, Gene. When you decided to make this leap, share with us your biggest fear in doing so, and how did you mitigate that to continue forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest fear really, was the idea: is anybody going to take this seriously? You know, because I'm serious about it. Look, do I understand the realities of it, the realities of the system? Trying to register, trying to get 5,000 signatures in every state just to get on a ballot, trying to raise $5,000, that allows me to register with the election committee. Because I've raised, that's the threshold. Raise $5,000, you can register with the election committee. Um, and will people say, "Oh, the guy isn't serious," or the very valid comment of yeah, it all sounds good, it all looks good, but am I wasting a vote?
For sure. That's always that always follows
And
the independent candidates, right?
right, and so I think the fear in it all is that people will default to that. Great guy, like what he has to say, but I don't want to waste a vote. um and my counter to that is that if there's 200 million people who feel that way, that say, well, I don't want to waste my vote, but they say, but you know what, I'm wasting it anyway if I'm voting on what I think are the lesser of two evils.
Right.
I'm really kind of wasting it anyway. So let me go ahead and write this guy in, or let me check the box for this independent guy, whatever the case might be in the state. And if 200 million people do that, then we probably haven't wasted a thing.
No, that's a great point.
And if we do that, and we do it because we fundamentally do believe in America, and we fundamentally do believe in fairness, and we do believe that our vote counts, that our vote is our voice in government, whether it's 200 million, 100 million, 30 million, 50 million, even, that is going to send a message that hopefully somebody grabs onto and says, we need to start doing things differently, and we need to start behaving different for the career politicians, at least.
Right. And I think what you said there, that wondering if you'd just be taken seriously, is that goes to our community members all around the world who aren't running for president of the United States, but just even thinking about taking that next step to the dream that they've been sleeping with every night, but they haven't acted on. Is we get so caught up in the fear of, oh my gosh, what is everybody else going to think?
Yeah.
That we don't actually step forward. So courage to you for stepping out there and facing that fear and realizing, like, it's still worth it to you, right? That exposure is worth it for you.
Well, and it ties in a little bit too with my with what we're doing with the opera company, and what our mission and our vision is for that. I don't expect anybody to be rocking out in their car 24/7 to opera. That's not what it's all about. But what I say to people is, and what we want to do through the company is inspire people to pursue their passions. So we say, look, this is a chance, step back, see some magnificently talented people who have pursued their passion. Opera's full of emotion, and it's beautiful, and you immerse yourself in it, and it's this great experience. And we want you to walk out and just be like, you know what, whatever your passion is, go for it. Give it some time, come in, relax, hear the music, get inspired, and then go forth into the world and do your thing. So again, if I believe my own message in that,
then
I have to believe my message that I can go out and run for president.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we can hang our hat on right there, right? Is literally people doing what they say they're going to do. And that's one of the most disenfranchised things. So I'm going to throw this at you, Gene. So I'm a veteran.
I'm sorry. Can I just jump in on that?
Quick? Jump in real quick. Yeah.
When you say people doing what they're going to do. So, there's no way I don't like saying this or, don't want to sound, arrogant in saying it. My wife's a beautiful woman, beautiful, talented, smart, all of these amazing things. And, people always say, wow, I certainly married out of my league and, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, well, what did you see in this guy? And the number one thing she says, he does everything he says he's going to do. She's like, and that's dating. That was the number one thing, with men. She's like, you can't find a man who does what he says he's going to do.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and here's the thing. Not only do we not do what we say we're going to do for other people, I would even throw this out, Gene. So many people live their lives not doing what they say they're going to do for themselves. Right?
True.
It's why dreams go unrealized or even unpursued. It's why books aren't written, operas aren't sung.
Yeah.
Because we don't even hold ourselves accountable to ourselves, let alone other people.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
All right. I want to ask you this. So I'm a veteran, public servant of many years. And I will tell you honestly, Gene, I need to be brought back in the political fold because I don't agree with either party. I don't like any of them anymore. So, and I truly believe that I am part of the majority of Americans that sit in the middle on almost everything and go, okay, where do I fit in anymore?
Right.
So what do you say, Gene, to bring back middle America?
Well, I say get behind me because that's exactly, that's exactly who I am. And that's why, I go back to this idea that the theater of politics and, saying things just to get the other side to say something else. And I'm with you. I think there's a lot more of us than there are of either
for sure
political party.
Right.
And that's why to me, doing things like this is so important because in getting out and getting into the ears of everybody, through every channel and spreading that word is just so important. But that's what that would be my message to middle America is at the end of the day, we've been conditioned to accept that we only have two choices, but there really is nothing stopping us from having a third choice.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping us from doing it, except we've been conditioned to believe that we only have those two choices, and we don't.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right on that. So here's, I guess that's a good point. You kind of talked about it earlier is normally libertarians, independent candidates, they lean one way or the other.
Yeah.
And then the premise is they're stealing votes from the bigger party so that then by default, if I vote for that person, I'm really taking away a vote from the nearest major candidate, which is going to elect the opposite.
Right.
So share with me, how do we alleviate that fear? How do we get people to realize, okay, this third party option is an option?
Well, because, it's right there on what you explained. So if there's you and I and you're more left leaning and I'm more right leaning, and we each vote for the middle candidate and we've each taken a vote, away from our party, then it's a net zero loss. It's a net zero loss for the parties. It's a +1, win for the for the third guy.
Yeah, but what you just said there, right? What you just said right there, Gene, is what I think we are missing so much in society. That requires you and I both to give a little.
Oh yeah, well, well, I mean, it's
right. It
I.
requires
You're right.
compromise.
If you have to, if you're gonna think about it in those terms, or if you go back to the old, if you just go back to John Nash and game theory, if I do what I believe is right for the greater whole, then then everybody wins. So if as an individual I do what's good for the greater, so if whether I'm on the left or the right, if I just believe, or if I'm leaning either of those ways, I should
Right.
say, if I say, well, look, this guy, this third party candidate or gal or whomever, this third party candidate um speaks to the values that I have and seems reasonable and realistic in their approach, and I think that's what the country needs. So that's who I'm gonna support, and I'm not worried about, oh, am I taking away, so the person I don't like is gonna win now and all the rest. I mean, that's the thing. Listen, if you love your party's candidate, then you're going to vote for your party's candidate.
Right.
If you're on the border about it and you're just doing it because it's the party candidate, I'm just doing it because I don't have a better choice, because it's the lesser of two evils, then just vote the third party candidate and you haven't lost anything.
Sure. Absolutely. So let me ask you this: how do we, Gene, bring what I am disgusted by, and I'll just talk about a couple of the last State of the Unions I watched, right? When we had Trump in there, we had the Speaker of the House stand up and rip up his speech in front of national media. Then we get Biden in there, and we got Congress members standing up and booing the president during a talk, all of which I find, just me as a citizen, thoroughly disgusting, because there
Yep.
has to be civility. So how do you bring back what I would say is grace and civility to that office and to the political spectrum?
Well, I think I think it begins with electing somebody who's different to whatever office you're able to. I think sending that message that getting the party nomination is not a guarantee of your success just because you're from a red state, because third party candidates are are getting into office, and so I think that begins to send the message, that we're not going to do this. I think the state of affairs that we're in, with regard to dignity and with regard to the grace of the office and the grace of the political system, overall, is very much by design. I just think it's a horrible design. I think it's, again, behind the scenes there are these groups, that are polling audiences, and they're looking for those reactions. That's why we have narratives now versus people just giving their opinions,
Right.
because narratives create an emotional reaction, and you can't counter a narrative with fact. So that's where we get into false facts and what's a fact, and da 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 da. Um, it comes down to what we're willing to accept.
Yeah.
Bottom line, and I think somewhere there in the Washington machine, this system and these theatrics have all been tested by some sort of social media consulting group that says, oh, this is what's going to get you the most likes and the most this and the most that, and get you a headline and keep you front of mind and make you look like you're powerful and politically savvy and whatnot. And then to us, they look like morons.
Yeah.
And they sound like morons. Look, this is part of the reason I'm doing it. I spent the majority of my civilian career, former Soviet Union, Eastern Europe. That was my wheelhouse. That was my expertise in the world. In 2004, I could tell you that Vladimir Putin was going to invade Ukraine. I could told you that in 2004.
Okay.
In 2012, I could tell you it was going to be within the next 2 years. In 2014, when it happened, I could tell you that the next Democratic president of the United States was going to have to deal with the full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Okay.
And I told everybody that I knew. And then it happened. Happened exactly how I knew it was going to happen. And then you see Biden then I see Biden, on TV. Such a surprise. We're trying to talk. So listen, so that comes down to two things. Either one, it's political theater.
Sure.
And I can understand all of the behind the scenes motivations and positionings and strategies and ideas that probably went into leading up to that happening and what the intended outcome of that was supposed to be. Or choice B is you have been a senator and in politics for 40 years and you authentically believe what you're saying and you didn't know this was going to happen, which says to me, then I need to be president of the United States. If our politicians and our president didn't see this coming,
right,
and did not have the will or intention to stop it, then then I need to be president because our system is more broken than we imagine that is.
Sure. Now, let me ask you this right now. If I walk around if I go any town, wherever I'm at, and I wear a Biden shirt, I'm going to get a certain reaction from about half the people. If I go to the alley in the same town and flip it and put on a Trump shirt, I'm going to get a reaction from the other half of the people. Right? So how do you heal America? How do we get past the one team versus the other team, right? I believe in all the science and all the COVID, or I'm completely anti-vax. And like, how do we heal all of the divisiveness we've been fed for
Right.
the last 3-4 years en masse?
I think in a sense it takes a degree of deprogramming. And what that's going to look like is really around transparency. Is really getting into a position, I talk about my vision for the first 100 days. What's the first 100 days of a Sticco administration look like? And what it looks like is a comprehensive review of all of our, of the administration of all of our institutions with a focus towards serving the American people. If we have something in place, if we behave in a certain way that does not begin with or easily answer, how does this best serve the American people, then we need to look at getting rid of it. And in that process and in that way, we also need to become transparent about all of these issues that have been dividing us, right? I think even in the best of situations, in the best of circumstances, in the best of wholehearted collaborative efforts between people, you're always going to get two opinions.
Yeah.
And in the analytical world, there's always three scenarios, right? There's an extreme on both sides, good and bad, and then the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And so if there's the ability, if there is the way to communicate anything back to the American people, when we do the post-mortem, so to speak, of the issues, it's to say, here are the parameters that we were working in, right?
Yeah.
Here's what was known at the time, and this is what the decision that was made was and why it was made, right? I think, again, most reasonable and realistic people can accept a decision, can accept an action that they may not necessarily agree with. It might not have been their way or what have you. But I think when people understand that you're dealing with the best, you're making the best decision that you can based upon the best information you have in the moment, um, then it's easier to digest. It's, people just want to understand,
Right.
right? And that's what it comes down to, and that would sort of be the crux of my administration, would be in communicating ideas and communicating these policies. We need to have more transparency about both arguments.
Yeah.
And say why the path that we're going on, we believe, is the best path forward.
Yeah.
Because there's always, ancillary issues and whatnot. Instead of just sort of being dismissive, well, it's all very complicated and,
right.
sort of, you're too stupid to understand. No, if the American people deserve the time and effort of understanding the thought process and understanding why we think the decisions that our leaders make are the best decisions in the moment. And then we have the flexibility to change them.
Yeah.
If we find that it's not working.
Right.
And we're not now married. We're not now married to an ideology that we can't back away from because we're going to lose votes.
Right.
That we can't go back and we can't say, well, hold on, you know what? This isn't working like we thought, or there's now a new piece of information from which we are now better informed and we can make a better decision. And we're going to move forward on this now. Tough to do in government, tough to do on a large scale. But again, I think if we've gone back to the fundamental of saying we are going to structure and operate in a way that is focused on serving the American people, then I think that inherently builds in the flexibility we need to do those sorts of things.
For sure. You want to know what else would relate to American people, at least this American person? As if, Gene, you get elected president and you fuck something up. You come out and say, guys, that one's on me. I'm sorry. I thought this and it turned out that. We're going to pivot. We're going to get to the middle again. It's on me. Like, that's all I want. Right? Like,
right.
If you mess up, you mess up. We all mess up. Nobody's perfect.
Exactly. I mean, again, it's situations are dynamic, right?
For sure.
Situations are dynamic. Things change. And that's why I think, that's why I think the core quality of a leader is. That's what the chief executive is. And again, it goes back to this idea of this false image we have in our mind of, the president being, all know. No, you know what? The president has access to a wealth of resources and information from which the president needs to make the best decision he can in that moment. That moment. Decision should be based upon the best interests of the American people.
Right.
And that decision should not be based upon, political expediency on the next election. That's where I think we all go wrong.
Yeah.
But I think everybody can digest that idea that something turned out to not be the way we thought it was, and we are shifting gears, based on the information we have at the time to make the best decision we can.
And that's how most people live their lives. And that's all we'd expect from leaders, is to just be honest with that. So let me ask you this question. This one came in from one of our audience members. How would you make decisions that are good for Americans first while minimizing the influence of the corporations and the political action committees?
I think that's a good question. The difference with me is that I'm not interested in being a career politician. I don't I'm not looking for a job once I'm out of office. I don't need a board position. I would very happily go back, if they'll have me, to the opera company that I would have had to step away from, and and go back to doing that. I think that in and of itself alleviates the influence of corporations and all the rest of it, right? Why do corporations have the power? Because people go into politics, so they have a lifetime career in politics. They gotta, get in with the party. The corporation sponsors the party.
Yeah.
When you don't, and it's a little bit of why, there was so much Trump hate going around, right? When you don't need anything from them, their ability to influence you is null.
Sure.
You know, I think we can have a lot better and more productive relationships with things like, big political groups and lobbyists, and we can have better relationships even with corporations. We can have better relationships with NGOs. We can partner, as the federal government, with a lot of these organizations, businesses, institutions, to solve a lot of, the issues that are out there, and to make them part of the process, so that there is less need for them to perhaps influence. So that's where, that's where I'm at. I think it's a combination of, number one, I don't need them.
Okay.
Because again, if the people are behind me,
right,
that's what's important first and foremost. I don't need them long term. I'm not affiliated with a party, so I'm sure they'll put all that effort, into reorganizing or restructuring or re-envisioning what their parties are. We'll deal with that when it happens.
So let me ask you, Gene, is that too idealistic, too simplistic of a thought that you could survive the machine that is Washington, D.C. without being affiliated?
Sure, absolutely. But if I believe in the Constitution and I believe in our structures and our institutions, then I have to believe that there is a path, and that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And if the path isn't there, then I think it shows we don't live in the country we thought we live in.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, another question that came in is we're big on our daily habits in this community and setting the stage for taking control of our lives and living our lives with purpose, right? Not just rambling through it day to day, but actually knowing what the hell we're doing. So what are a couple of your daily habits that enable you to be a great leader?
I'd say my greatest one is my waking up in the morning, sitting down, having my cup of coffee, and giving myself a moment to reflect and to think about the day ahead, to think about the day that's just passed. I'm very introspective in a way. I saw I think it was a meme one time that said, don't believe everything you think.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonates with me. So, when confronted with a question, a challenge, an obstacle, I always try to step back from myself, to separate the emotion, to separate the reaction, and to focus on the reality for a bit. So, is that morning period, as far as, my routine goes, is a bit of a chance for me to recalibrate myself, in that way, and to make sure that the purpose with which I am moving forward is being done so with the right motivations and the right mindset, as I do it.
Good, good. Well, as we wrap up, Gene, what final message would you want to leave our audience with as far as you as a person, your goals for running for president, and just what you bring to the world?
I think we're at a point where we need, as a people, to send some serious messages. We need to be serious about what we expect from our leadership. And we need to come to grips with the idea that if we do not take action, particularly, speaking with our votes, it's going to be a rough road ahead. And it's not going to change. I think what I hope people see in me is an opportunity to do that, to change, to send a message for change. I hope that people, in a way, are inspired to put themselves out there, and whether it's at a local level, in whatever form. I always encourage my children. I said, at some point in life, you have to go be of service to your community.
Yeah.
And I don't care, if it's, your local city or a club or a county, state, at whatever level, find a way to be of service to somebody else. For me, I want to take my years of experience. I want to take my passion. And I want to take a vision that I have for all of America, an optimistic vision, a strong vision, a vision that brings us together to really, catapult us into the future in the way that we should be, and not holding ourselves back. And it's almost like we're clawing at one. We're all trying to advance, and we're all trying to claw at one another and step over each other's back to get there. We got to move together, and we got to move forward. And that's what, in asking for everybody's vote, I hope to achieve. And I hope that's what it represents. And I hope that's why they'll give me that vote.
I love it. Where can our audience follow you, support you in the mission here?
Sure. So there's a Facebook page, Gene Sticco for President of the United States. There is a website. It is www.forthepromiseofamerica.com. Or you can just use my name, genesticco.com. It leads to the same landing page, and there's some information there where I've started outlining my position on, the hot button issues. And again, it's bare bones, in a sense, straight to the point. On the Facebook page, I've gotten into a little bit more of spelling out what policies might look like, of spelling out not only the policy, but measurable criteria, timelines, things that as president you can hold me accountable for. And I think that's, again, part of that idea of being service focused, and part of that idea of maintaining the understanding that I am working for the American people. So they deserve to know what to expect and when to expect it. And and so, visit the website, visit the Facebook page, take a look through there. From the website, there's a link to donate. Again, once I get to $5,000 in donations, I can register with the Federal Election Committee. Hopefully that makes a headline. Nice. Every little bit helps. If you live in one of these towns like Dixville Notch, New Hampshire, that has 30, 40 people in the village, let me know about it. I want to come out there and get all 30 votes of your city.
I love it. I love it, Gene. Thanks so much for taking time to join us, and man, we wish you the best of luck on your journey here.
Thank you, and hopefully we'll talk again during the process.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.